Hi, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to lasagna night. I'm excited to share with you a lot of tips and tricks I've learned through the years to make this a much easier process. I know a lot of people would say that it was the time it took to do this, and I would absolutely would have agreed previously. I would always spend a couple days doing it. Now I spend just over an hour and I can make 4 different lasagnas, and I'm going to show you how. The first one is, you all know, I love my Marcella Hazan sauce. This is done and cooked in 45 minutes. What used to take me over a day, and then I would like it to marry in the refrigerator for a day, so I would have to wait for the second day for it. This sauce, you do not have to. So I've already done a short video on it, but I will tell you very quickly. What you do is, it's 2 cups of a tomato puree, 5 tablespoons of butter, and 1 onion cut in half, and let that sit for 45 minutes. So I've already done that. In this stock pot, because I am making 4 lasagnas, I have 4 times my recipe in here. So I just took that recipe, 4 times it, and this is what's in my stock pot now. And this is a 10-quart pot, just so you know. Also, I think too, what would always mess up my kitchen the most was my pasta noodles. The biggest trick, if you're using regular store-bought hard pasta noodles, we would always go through the process of boiling them. And the trick, if you are gonna still do that, is to let them dry. Lay them out on towels after you've done cooking them, because the biggest mistake in lasagna is if you have too much moisture in that pasta noodle, your sauce and everything, it'll become more of a runnier consistency and not a thicker sauce put on there. So make sure you do that if you're going to use regular store-bought pasta noodles. Or let them air dry if you have an air rack. Another trick if you buy pasta store-bought noodles in the packages is what I started doing a few years ago, before I will tell you my latest trick, is you put them in a very hot bath. So I would fill up my lasagna tray, lay the noodles in there, and then put boiling water in there. And you only do it for about 5-10 minutes. It just softens and get that starch out of there. Then you need to take them out of there, let them air dry again. And again, don't forget the air drying process with that. But now what I do is I buy oven ready lasagna noodles. They're in all the grocery stores. I know Barilla has one. The size is a little bit different than the typical long lasagnas. Either one's fine. I've used them all. So this is all I do now. You do not need to do any prep work with these, and they really do work. What I did find though is, and I do like my lasagnas to be very moist with my sauce, so I make sure that when I lay my lasagna noodle down, my sauce is the next layer for sure going in on there. But I really do like them, and it definitely saves so much time on here. So either way, you've got those options. And the third, and probably my favorite, is when I make my homemade pasta noodles or lasagna noodles. But I don't always have time for that, or just for whatever reason. But either way, let's pick your noodle. So if you're buying the regular pasta noodles, go ahead and make sure you boil them or put them into a hot bath and let them, after you pull them out, make sure you let them air dry the best you can, either hanging them or putting them on a towel. But for my oven ready, we just need to start working on our layering, which we will be doing. So I've talked to you about, so my Hazan sauce takes 45 minutes. So I always start that first, because during that time period, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to start my assembly line and getting everything ready that I need to make my lasagnas. Once your assembly line's prepped, this is a very quick process, and you can create the lasagnas that you want to do. I also have, with my ricotta, I like ricotta sauce for my lasagnas, so I have ricotta in here. A little trick that I like to do is throw in a little bit of cream cheese in there, and then I add fresh basil and parsley, and a little unhidden trick that people can't quite figure out, but actually it absolutely flavors my ricotta beautifully. I will zest just a little bit of a lemon in there. So I will have that. And it just perks up all my flavors beautifully. And nobody can quite figure out what's in there. And it's very subtle, but do a little bit of lemon zest and it'll be really fabulous. Another thing I kind of want to share with you, and I believe this, and this is how I cook for everything that I cook, especially when I'm layering things or creating my, anything that has layers of things. I know I just repeated myself, but I want you to make sure that every part of your dishes is perfect for whatever your tastes are. I don't wait till the end to taste my food in one big bulk. Every bit of these I flavor, season to what my liking is so that I know when it's all done, I'm kind of done with my process and I know everything will turn out great. So my ricotta, I've already tasted it. I make sure I salt every one of my layers. And I kind of talk about this. Salting every layer, and it's not this huge amount of salt, but salt will enhance each one of your layers. And it's not this salty taste that happens, it's really a very mild version to pop up all your flavors into a really good taste. So I have my ricotta, and I tasted that, and add my little lemon zest, it's a little trick. My mozzarella, I have added just a little bit of salt, but it was really good just kind of as is, so I didn't need to worry too much about there because it was already previously done. And then my Marcella Hazan sauce has already been cooked for the show for you for 45 minutes. And I'm also actually gonna make a meat lasagna for one of my lasagnas. So in my meat, I have added Italian sausage. Even if I just do some beef, I really like to add Italian sausage. This is where it's up to you. If you want it all to be Italian sausage, go ahead and do that. It's fabulous, and I've done it many a times that way. I like mixing the two. It just tends to be a little milder for me, and no one flavor overwhelms another. So I always add just a little bit of Italian sausage in there. You can also, like when I'm doing that, if you don't want it to be, or you like the spice, go ahead and use a spicy Italian. I tend to use the sweet Italian. I'm not a real spicy flavoring, but if you like spice in your foods, go ahead and add your spicy Italian to this. So those are all your choices as you're kind of working your way through. So what you're gonna do is, the biggest thing here is your first, well, one more thing I want to share with you. When you have these lasagna noodles, your pan needs to fit, especially because it's hard at this point, needs to make sure it fits that whole lasagna length of that noodle. So that's about the only thing I need to worry about when I'm doing this. There it is. You always start your first layer with sauce. So I'm just going to put a very thin layer on the bottom of my pan of sauce. This pan is a little bit bigger. I love this pan. It's my Le Creuset one, but I just love the size of it and with the handles. But this one holds 4 of these lasagna noodles all the way across. So I just know that as I'm layering this up. Do not feel, lasagna is one of these things that is, it's your own preference. How high do you like it? How deep do you want it? Those are all things, especially, and it kind of determines on your pan too. So don't like to have to have 5 layers or 6. Sometimes I just like for dinner, if I'm actually doing a really quick one, and I just make up one of my sauces, the typical recipe for this, and I'm just going to do a really quick recipe on it. I usually use a smaller pan, and I'm just layering for a couple of us. So this all can be made, whether this is for 2 or 20 people or whatever you're making this. Don't feel just because it's 2 of you or 1 of you that you can't make lasagna. We're just going to take a smaller pan, and we just don't have to have quite as much as I have here, obviously, as I'm doing 4 of them. But I know, like for my son who lives in LA, I will be making one of these versions. Will be a nice square pan for him, and then that way I will freeze it, and when I go see him, I'll take that in for him. which always loves that. But no, you don't have to make these huge pans. So and actually one of them that I'll be making, I'm gonna be doing it in like a round casserole pan. So that typical lasagna thought process, don't always worry about that. We eat this a lot for the next day or two afterwards, so I will always kind of just tend to make one normal lasagna pan. But again, don't feel like you have to make the lasagna size. The only issue was going to be if your noodle, the length of this. But let's say you're just going to make this for 2 people, you can crack this enough. And let's say you just had a small pan, go ahead and do that. It will work, just be careful when you're snapping this. Or if you're boiling your noodles, you're totally fine. Just cut your noodles, to whatever size you want. I did want to share with you, I love these. Get them at the dollar store. They're fabulous. They come in all different sizes and heights. And these are great. I love to freeze in these. I love the size variances that these come into. And I also like my cleanup because I just throw this away when I'm done. And then actually if I'm giving them as a gift or housewarming present, this way they don't have to worry about giving me a pan back, and I just will serve it in this, and this freezes really well. And I will show you how I do freeze my lasagna for this. So what I did is I did 1 layer of sauce on the bottom of my pan. I laid my noodles out, and then I did 1 more layer of sauce here. I'm actually going to do my mozzarella. And actually sometimes, like in my pantry or my refrigerator, I will have burrata cheese. I love burrata cheese in here. So sometimes I'll mix the two. Sometimes I'll just do all mozzarella. I'll kind of see what I have. So right now I'm just going to do my mozzarella in here. Then going to take another layer of the pasta noodles and lay that on top. And then, especially with the oven ready, for me, what I found is for every layer of my pasta noodles that I'm putting in there, I make sure I layer 1 layer of sauce on top of that before I think about what I'm going to do. If I'm doing meat at this point, I would be taking my meat and doing a nice layer of meat. Back in the day, my sauce always held my meat. And I kind of changed just the way I've changed my cooking a lot through the years, and we don't always want a meat sauce, but we also do really like a meat lasagna. So what I do now is and I'll actually do this one with meat. So on my second layer, I'm just taking all the meat that I cooked up, and this does have Italian sausage in it, like I said, or beef, or whatever you guys like. Go ahead and just kind of experiment. So I'm going to just layer a beautiful layer of meat on there. I then go in and take another layer of my pasta. So I don't add sauce again in there. When I'm eating now my meat lasagnas, I definitely like to instead of being in my sauce, I definitely like seeing it. And don't forget that you have already layered 1 layer of this with the sauce on top, so it will mix in with your sauces. So I'm just going in with another layer of red sauce, and I'm going to go into a little bit of mozzarella. On my layering, especially if I'm going ricotta, I'm now going to, I always just like to add a little bit of mozzarella, or sometimes I'll put it in my ricotta, but I am going to put a beautiful layer of ricotta on here. So I don't worry about, it's pretty loose, so I don't have to, it will spread out with the heating process. So I'm just going to put a nice beautiful layer in there, and then go back to another layer of my noodles. There is no, and I guess even as I'm sharing this all with you, I don't have this perfect set recipe, like it has to be this layer first and that layer. I kind of, if I'm more in a cheese mood, I'm going to add a lot more ricotta. If I'm in a meat mood, I'm going to probably add more meat. So play with this on what you like. You just definitely want to make sure you have a couple layers of meat and a couple layers of cheese. There's times too, especially if I'm doing a really heavy meat, whatever reason, as I do this, I will mix my mozzarella and ricotta together on that layer. So you can do that too. So I'm gonna do one more layer of meat here. And I've got to open up one more box of noodles. And I will be just about done with this one lasagna. So I wanted to break that down just a little bit for you. Let it be yours. Let it be what your flavorings are. And if you don't even like ricotta, then just go ahead and do all mozzarella. I just happen to like ricotta. And sometimes, like I said, I mix up my mozzarella and my burrata cheese. So I'm gonna do one more really good layer of red sauce. And I'm done with one lasagna. So I always like to top with fresh Parmesan on top of there. And I am ready for the oven on that one. So there you go. There's my first, that's heavy. There's my first lasagna. So there you go. I talked about the one pan where you can actually throw it away. I had been using Pampered Chef, the stone pans, oh my gosh, 30-ish more, probably years. I really do like them for lasagna. I also like my Le Creuset a lot. And so the pan doesn't really matter, but I do notice that in the stone, it tends to be, it marries the food a little bit differently. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's why you're seeing me now with my stone pan. What I'm going to be doing on this one is I'm actually going to be doing a spinach lasagna. So again, I'm going to start my first layer always off with sauce. Layer lasagna noodles down. And this one will only take 3 across for me, so that's where I'm at. I have cooked up some spinach and sauteed it. What I do here is I take olive oil, butter, garlic, shallots, kind of get that working in my pan, and then I lay a huge bag of the spinach in here. This is kind of what you're left with, as we all know when we're cooking up spinach, but it's so delightful. The little trick I'm going to share with you is when you're done with your spinach, add just a teeny bit of nutmeg. Just sprinkling maybe a quarter of a teaspoon for that whole, it was spilled, about a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. If I have, and I've done this where I cream my spinach at this point, I still add the nutmeg, and there are times that I do add creamed spinach into my lasagna. I'm just not going to today, but you can also add like a creamed spinach in here, which is fabulous. Because of the spinach, I'm probably leaning more towards ricotta, for whatever reason, than I am with my mozzarella. So I had my layer of lasagna. I am just gonna kind of peel some spinach here. And I'm not gonna do the whole tray for you, but I just want to share how I would be doing this one, because I'll get probably 3 layers out of that pan. I'm then gonna layer 1 layer of my noodles. And this is where I really like my ricotta with my spinach. So, oh, sorry. I forgot to layer sauce on top of that noodle. It'll be okay with the ricotta, but we usually want to have sauce on top of each of these noodles. And I'm gonna add my layer of ricotta. And I am probably gonna do this one definitely more with ricottas and spinach. So this I will continue later on for you. But this is where we would be, I'd say I'd be done probably in about 5-10 minutes on that thing, so no worries there. I also will be doing one, like I said, that I like to use my freezer. Like I said, it's always nice for me to just be able to do this. So I will be making up a tray with the exact same thing. Probably will be doing my meat, whatever I want here. So I will be doing a frozen version next on top of there. I did want to show you one more version requested, is eggplant lasagna. It is absolutely fabulous. There's a couple little tricks when you're doing your eggplant that I'm going to share with you. When you do eggplant, now this can be sliced lengthwise, or it can be sliced, you know, the way I did it here, just down the eggplant. And I do leave the skin on, because what I do is I lay out, cut all my eggplant, I salt it with kosher salt. I let that sit for at least 10 minutes on top of the eggplant. I then take a paper towel, and you will see the moisture just suck up into that paper towel to get that as much moisture out. Again, it's kind of the same concept as we did with the pasta noodles. Why we need the moisture out? We need the moisture out of this eggplant. Then what I do is I slow roast at 400 degrees for 20 minutes my eggplant. So I've actually made up 2 trays. I don't go real thin and I don't go real thick. I would say maybe 1/4 of an inch is on my eggplant. Enough that you can get a good slice in there. I mean, don't get too worried about it, but you want to kind of, I think when it gets too thick, we all don't like the taste of egg, or I know I personally don't like eggplant when it's too thick. I like about this layer. Even if I'm making eggplant parmesan or any of my eggplants, this is about the biggest that I would go on this. We need enough of it to be thick enough to stabilize for the ricotta or the mozzarella and your sauces, but you don't want it so thick because it just kind of gets a texture on it. And slow roasting this, as opposed to boiling or all your other processes you can, have tried. Slow roasting to me has always been the best. So again, I slice up all mine, lay them on a tray, salt it, get a paper towel after about 10-15 minutes, get the moisture out, and then we are really good to start layering up our lasagna. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start off, and I ended up, I don't know, I just was in a mood for a round pan. And again, this is just a Le Creuset slow roasting that can go into my brazier, which I actually love this pan. So again, you can be various on what your lasagna is gonna look like or how you want it to be presented. So I just did a thin layer of sauce on the bottom. I am just gonna take all my beautiful eggplant and do the best. Usually one in the middle works, and then a couple on the outside. And I'm gonna take, I think I'm gonna take some mozzarella for this one. And I will probably do a layer of sauce. And I did no other, just so you know, I did no other seasoning on my eggplant. If you kind of take that process that I explained just previously, your eggplant in itself will be just fabulous, especially if it's good eggplant. So go ahead and do that. And I'm just I would continue doing my layering. All done in a round pan here. I'm gonna grab a couple bigger pieces back here. And again, you can go as much as you want, as little as you want. Do more ricotta, do more mozzarella. I just happen to like probably more mozzarella when it comes to my eggplant. So I'm gonna do that and do another layer and just work my way through. And I will probably get through whatever eggplant I have here. I'll just continue this pan. This pan will definitely hold, I'd say, a good 4 layers of this eggplant. So you can see this pan's probably about an inch and a half high, and I will definitely get a good 4 layers. And this is a beautiful eggplant lasagna. So I hope all this helps. My full recipes are on yourvisionlife.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, leave me a message on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. Love seeing your pictures when I get it, and your creativity and how you change up these recipes to fit your family's lifestyle. So be sure to follow me, because next up will be how I set my dinner table and presenting my lasagna dinner with all the sides of, I think I'm gonna have a salad, I have some bread, and I probably will be having my eggplant and my meat lasagna. So stay tuned, and thank you again, and have a wonderful day.